She laughed to her friends. He pays for Netflix and Hulu. Meanwhile, I watch them with my ex every night. I just smiled, but when she logged in later, the username on the account made her drop her remote. I heard it through the wall first, the kind of laughter people polish for an audience. Our place shares a thin divider with the neighbor's balcony, and when the wind runs the right direction, you can hear every toast twice, once from the mouth, once from the glass. She was with her friends, retelling the kind of story that makes someone the punchline. He pays for Netflix and Hulu, she said. Meanwhile, I watch them with my ex every night. The chorus of "Oh my God" and "Girl" spilled over the railing like confetti. I stood in the kitchen and watched the kettle almost boil. I just smiled, not because it was funny, but because clarity has its own sense of humor. We had been together long enough for routines to harden into furniture. I paid the subscriptions because I cared about Sundays, about background noise that felt like peace. She said shared accounts were just convenience, no different from borrowing salt or blankets. But convenience has an echo when it leaves the house with you. The echo was his name, a shadow in jokes, a reference in captions. I had raised it, carefully. She had rolled her eyes, expertly. We're adults, she'd said, not jealous teenagers, and now here she was, auditioning for applause using my login. I didn't text or stomp or make a speech on the balcony like a reality show contestant. Instead, I poured tea, opened my laptop, and logged into the unglamorous dashboard where monthly charges live. I have a habit that made this night possible. I keep a list. The list had every service, every email, every reset that ever needed doing. I started with Netflix, then Hulu, then the bundle she insisted we needed once for a show about cooking that made us order takeout twice. I changed the emails too. Aliases only I knew. I rotated the passwords to phrases no one would guess because no one would believe I'd be sentimental enough to use them. I turned on two-factor authentication for the first time in too long. Each service chirped the same question. Want to sign out of all devices? I sipped and clicked yes, yes, yes. But I wasn't done. Petty would have been changing the lock and calling it a night. Precision required something else, a mirror, so I changed the profile names on Netflix. The primary profile became Enjoy Your Ex's Wi-Fi. The second, Applause Track. The kids' profile we never used, Boundaries 101 on Hulu. I did better. I renamed the lone profile, This Is Your Ex's Living Room, with a question mark big enough to swallow a sitcom, for Disney Plus, which she loved for nostalgia. I chose Kindness. Grown-ups show up, and then the elegant touch. The account owner's username, the one that appears under billing and in tiny corners of the login page, became a single, simple line. Ask before you borrow. I logged out and washed the cup. I didn't send a screenshot. I didn't post a story. I went to bed under a quiet that felt less like absence and more like intention. Her key turned in the door after midnight. She peeked in, saw me pretending to be asleep, and tiptoed to the bathroom, the way people do when they want to look innocent in a diary. The next evening taught me that the internet is faster than regret. She curled up on the couch with her phone, mirroring the screen to the TV like a magician revealing a dove. Netflix greeted her cheerfully with a red banner. We've updated your account security. Please sign in again. She snorted at me like I had broken something I didn't know how to fix. She typed the old password. The app smiled and shook its head. Again. Same. She huffed and hit forgot. Her email chimed from the bedroom, where it no longer mattered. She tried Hulu. The profile title hit her first. She froze. The remote drooped in her hand like a towel after a cold pool. She read it aloud without meaning to. This is your ex's living room? The room did a strange thing then. It leaned. Sound made a smaller noise. She turned to me, face arranged for reasonable. Babe, did you change the login? I looked up from a book I was actually reading. I changed the owner, I said, and turned a page. She laughed at that. High and breathless. You're being dramatic. You've been rehearsing that line, I said. I figured I would give you a new script. She stood, tried Netflix again, saw the profile names, Enjoy Your Ex's Wi-Fi, Applause Track, Boundaries 101, blush rising like someone had painted it on from the inside. This is childish, she declared. Childish is what people call consequences when they arrive dressed casually. She grabbed her purse and snapped a photo of the TV. Her thumbs blazed. A story appeared on her feed. Apparently, I live in a sitcom. Comments pinged like popcorn kernels. I turned the page in my book and underlined A. Sentence about mercy. That night, she slept glued to her phone, the way you cling to a raft you think might be a boat. In the morning, she was late, forgot her charger, and left the remote on the couch like evidence of a crime that had no victim. I went to work and let the accounts sit with their new names, gentle as labels on jars. Here's the part she didn't know yet. I wasn't only changing strings of characters, I had spent the afternoon moving my life out of her reach. The lease, mine. The utilities, mine. The streaming, now mine in practice as well as payment. Our shared calendar. Unshared. The notes where we kept grocery lists, exported. I created a new Wi-Fi network name. Ask politely. Password. Say please. The old network. Off. I printed a sheet with the new details and taped it inside a cabinet. For me, I didn't hide anything. I just stopped leaving it on the table like a buffet for people who RSVP'd with jokes. She must have tried again at lunch. The apps, ever cheerful, again asked for permission. She sent me a single text. "You're embarrassing yourself," I replied. I was embarrassed already. I've graduated to clarity. She sent a voice note full of sighs and pre-apologies. I didn't press play. That evening, she came home with a story fact-checked by friends. "We're taking a break," she announced. Like a magazine headline, I nodded. "Take what you need," I said. I had already boxed up the belongings I knew were hers. The scarf from her sister. The first edition paperback she'd bought with me and never opened. The recipes her grandmother handwritten. I labeled each carefully and stacked them by the door. She blinked as if the boxes had spoken. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're going to lock me out of TV and call it maturity?" "I'm going to lock me into honesty," I said. The usernames were the courtesy copy. She left to go watch At His Place, the phrase she could not stop dressing in sarcasm. Hours later, my phone vibrated on the counter like it had a conscience. A text from an unknown number. "Hey man, can you add my TV?" The login keeps asking for a code. It was her ex, apparently convinced I was the help desk for his entertainment. I stared at the screen, then typed, "That's not my living room." There was a pause where I imagined him reading his own mention on a profile. Then, weak, I powered my phone down and slept like a person whose name had finally been signed by its owner. Days have a way of stacking when you stop letting them scatter. I got good at dinner for one. I walked to the library and checked out a cookbook that believed in butter. I returned messages from friends I'd ghosted while trying to be endlessly cool about disrespect. The world didn't ask me for a password once. The quiet around the TV stopped being accusation and became air. Saturday, she tried another tactic. She arrived with a bag of snacks like a peace offering you can eat. "Truce?" she asked. I brought the good chips. I brewed tea. "Truce is a contract," I said. "It starts with truth." She sat on the edge of the couch like a student who had missed several key lectures. "You know I was joking," she said. "That story. My friends exaggerate. What about every night?" I asked, "Is that a day of the week?" She smirked, then saw my face not moving, something unwound in her eyes. "It's not like that," she said. "He's just there." "So was I said, "and then you used me like Wi-Fi." We watched the condensation climb our glasses on the TV. The login screen waited, polite as a butler with secrets. "Just change them back," she said finally. "The names, the passwords, everything will be normal." She said normal like a hotel says complimentary breakfast. I shook my head. "Normal doesn't include me paying for you to watch with someone else." I put the remote in her hand. "The way you put a pen in someone else's." "Try to sign in," I said. She did. The username stared back. "Ask before you borrow." She dropped the remote. Not a dramatic throw, just a quiet loss of grip. The drop made a soft sound, a small truth. She picked it up, thumb hovering, then set it on the table as if the plastic had grown teeth. "You really had to make it public," she said. "It's not public," I replied. "It's private, between you and the remote." "It's what you asked it to do," playback. I thought she would leave then, flanked by pride and sarcasm, but something unexpected happened. She cried, not the strategic kind, the kind that disturbs mascara and alarms memory. "I didn't think you'd care," she admitted. "You never say anything," I nodded. "I learned to be quiet so you wouldn't call me jealous. Turns out I was just helping you write jokes." We talked a long time without the TV, about small cruelties that needed better names, about resource sharing and boundary burning, about the difference between modern and careless. She apologized, then apologized for apologizing. I didn't decide anything heroic that night. I only decided my name belonged on things I paid for and that my silence wouldn't subsidize an audience anymore. The next week, she moved some clothes to her friend's place for a while. I kept everything civil because peace tastes better than victory. We set a date for her to pick up the boxes. I wrote down the time, like adults do when they mean it, the night before. I got another text from the unknown number. We're at a black screen again, code? I didn't answer. At pickup, she handed me my spare key, no speeches. In the doorway, she looked at the TV one last time. The username still said ask before you borrow. She nodded at it like it had read her something true. Months later, I still have the accounts. I pay the bills. I also watch the shows. Friends come over and we talk before the opening credits. I change the profile names back to ordinary, mine, guest, and because I like to remember, ask politely. Sometimes it makes me smile, the way a scar does when it no longer throbs. Every so often, I get a ping from a device trying to sign in from a location I recognize. The email asks if this was me. I press no. The world rotates anyway. I roast vegetables. I finish books. I call my sister just to talk about a line from a movie we both love. The TV glows at reasonable hours. The kettle boils all the way. If there's a moral, it isn't that streaming is sacred or that revenge needs subtitles. It's that names matter, and so do doors, and so does the difference between borrowing and taking. Some people learn by laughter. Some people learn when their remote slips and hits the floor. I learned I could be generous without being invisible, and when she logged in later and saw a username telling the simplest truth, the remote did the rest. It fell out of the future we weren't building and landed in the present I finally owned.